Welcome in, everyone. This is our weekly flow recap for the week of 6/9/2025 to 6/13/2025. We're going to kind of go through the flow that was called out in Stock Hub. A couple of these were posted online as well. And for anybody that's new joining, I do post everything here. Everything that we post is tracked. I don't post a million pieces of flow. I actually look for high quality flow and all that. So again, everything's posted in real time. Don't edit my posts. Don't change anything around. And we do recap those certain sections in there. So what I'm going to do is typically I would always kind of run through everything. I kind of want to just hit on the kind of not better plays, but just kind of the plays that have made a good move. We will kind of touch on everything, but I'm not going to do a super deep dive on every piece of flow. But let's get started here. So first up, we had the 613 ARM 144 calls. That came in on the 9th. So we're going to pop back to the 9th here. So here was our whale entry here. And when we look at this flow, we can see I'm always looking for certain characteristics on the flow. So I have my own rules, and if flow doesn't match my rules, I'm not going to post it. So here's our flow. Again, you can see here is our size and our elevated premium here. So I'm looking at this trade when it comes in. You can see that IV spike. You can see that flow coming in at the ask. Good premium. So now when we take a look at the flow here, and also the net call premium here too. I mean, you can see that call premium was up and that call volume was up as well there too. So flow here, again, 1,000 contracts at $1.31, so 131,000 on that one. These expired yesterday, so I knew this was kind of short term, so you can kind of gauge the aggression on those contracts then. So here is our entry, 131. These actually came up and hit 263 on the 11th here, so they did make an intraday move. So again, that yellow line is just your contract price. Now let's bump this out to Friday here so we can see that full week move. So again, here was that whale. See that move up here that same day on the 9th. And let's see, I'm trying to see where it shows at 263 on the 11th here. So 186, we're going to go with actually just that 223 as the high there. Actually, we'll do a split. I want to see what let's see. So this came out on the 9th. So it says we hit a high of 258 on the 9th here, and then we hit a high there. So spreads could have been a little wider here as well. So we'll go with the high here on the same day move. So that would be 131 to 258, which would be 96.95% intraday move there. And again, if you held them, obviously it looks like the spreads would have been a little wider there, so you would have been able to probably get a good return there, and it looks like that's where that whale kind of probably took some more profits there. But kind of looking at this one here at the 9th, can see we only had about 200 contracts carry over. So I want to kind of go back to the 9th again here. And let's pop this back to the 9th. So we had originally 1,000 contracts here. So it looks like we had about 125 come in there. Some more at the ask, another 100 there. So this whale looks like they probably slowly sized out here. I mean, you have chunks of 50s, 40s, some more volume in there too. Because you only had about 197 contracts carry over out of the roughly 2,000 traded. So these contracts were actually passed off, or not passed off, they were closed same day. So whale opened them, they closed the same day, and you can tell that just because there's no big change, not a huge massive change in that open interest there at all. So again, those ARM calls 138 to that 258 for 96.95%. All right, so moving on next, we had the 613 NVTS 8 calls here. All right, sorry for the quick little interruption there. Somebody likes to play with their toy that likes to play music, so snuck in and started playing with it. So yeah, we are on to the 613 NVTS 8 calls. Okay, another interruption there, sorry. So the 613 NVTS 8 calls here. Again, these coming in on Monday. So let's go back to the 9th. So here was our entry here. 2,400 contracts at 45 cents a contract, 112,000. Again, always have to look at that raw flow feed. And let me pop the results out here. So this one we had a repeated hits. So again, you can see small little drop in that IV at first here, but paying attention to this whole feed here, just kind of want to take a peek here. So this one, so that timing wasn't exact. I mean, that wasn't really too much part of it. So when you kind of look at this, that IV kind of spikes here. Obviously a little wider bid ask here. Believe this one you had to trade in 0.5 increments. So again, keeping an eye on that IV. It stays up all the way. Now if it dropped a little bit in here, then it'd probably kind of concern me a little bit, just with that kind of that beginning time here. Just not always being pretty close, so I probably would assume maybe this is part of that trade, but it's not linked to it technically here. But just that IV decrease here would probably concern me if I saw that IV kind of moving around here a little bit in that raw flow there. But again, just kind of following this up here. So we got sweeps, they're repeated hits. Flow looks good here. So we did have this flow come in after the fact. I mean, you're very close. Again, that timing is very, very close. You can see that IV spike there again a little bit as well too. So that's kind of where that case came in, where I would assume these are buys. Again, you can't 100% tell. No, nobody can unless you're that actual trader. But again, here's our move, 45, and again, combining that with like the net call premiums and all that really helps as well too. I mean, that net call premium's up. These moving 45, and I mean, they move the same day again as well too. So you're looking at the 9th here. Again, hit 65, and I mean, you had multiple days where it was up. So let's just pop this out to the weekly view. So again, here is our view on the 9th. So 45 was the entry. And these hitting a high of, we got 131 here on the 11th. So I mean, you're chopping at 68, 80 almost, and then 87 here, and obviously the wider spread's 131 there, which looks like where our whale probably took off profits here. A lot of that open interest, kind of seeing a lot of volume here and just not a lot of big changes in that open interest. So a lot of contracts changing hands as well in here. It's kind of why I like to find the bigger size contracts against the very small open interest. It makes it a little easier to kind of track the whales, because it starts to get a little messy here. But again, a lot of that volume, I mean, those running from that max 0.45 to that 131, that's 191% on those. So let's see what we got next. We have the BTUs. So these ones are sitting kind of flat here. Again, these coming in on the 9th, 5,800 contracts at 43, trading, closing at about 37 today. Some more time on those. So those are down 15% right now. So some of these, again, I'm not going to dive too deep on. But again, you can do whatever you want with this information as well. So the 630 IWM 216 calls. Again, we're sitting at 24% multi-leg now. This was our whale, 290. You can see that clean entry. Again, that clean volume to open interest. You know it's an opening trade. So 290. And we'll pop at the flow feed here again. And you'll know typically 99% of my flow feeds, they're very uniform, where you have that IV increasing, that spot price increasing or staying at the ask. Again, here you are, that IV increasing, that's a repeated hits alert. 290 coming in right at the ask. You can see that spot price increasing, that IV increasing. Very good sign that it could be a potential buy. And even kind of looking at that net call premium at the time back on, this was the 9th. I mean, you're pretty flat, so you're not seeing a lot of put premium call volume, so could be a good sign as well there too. That's probably more of a flat reading there. And again, so here's that, your entry 290, hit a high of 364 here on the 11th. So it looks like could have had some bid side action here at 339 on the 10th. So again, multi-leg now too, so there's probably some action going on there. But hitting that high of 364 here on the 11th, probably up here at open or so, with a little wider spread. So those moving from that 291 to 364, 25%, 25.09% on those. And just kind of a little guide for those that might be newer. I like to see, and I always tell people to adjust stops up because you don't know what can happen. Like if you were to hold these and you saw this volume still here, now this IWM whale's trading at 125. You have to kind of have your own stops on. You have to adjust up. You don't know what the full trade is going on, what's going on, and with the whale, all that. They could this little trade could be part of a way bigger trade. You never know what's going on fully. So you do have to use caution. You do have to adjust stops up, use risk management. But so like if you're up here at 359, I have stops on. I mean, you have 2 days to pretty much have stops on and at least adjust up. But that 25%, a lot of people like to just call up 300, 400%. A 25% trade is a very excellent trade. What I tell people in my group, I like to at least kind of look minimum 10, 15% return, something there. And what I like to tell people too, if your broker has trailing stops, all that, I like adjusting up stops. If I'm up 10%, I'm going to at least set my stops at break even. I don't want to lose money on something that's up 10%, 10, 15%. Just slightly adjust those stops up, and it makes you become a better trader, helps you maximize your gains. You're not going to exit at the top of these ranges at all because there's so many little nuances and little pullbacks. I mean, this first one, that 359, you drop all the way down to 307. You should have stops on something like that, and you should at least be kind of hitting some contracts, taking some profit. You can hold runners, but again, I always tell people, just be smart. Just be smart and adjust up stops, practice risk management, all that fun stuff. So again, that one, just kind of a little backstory there for those that might be a little newer joining too. So again, like what's something I would do here, I mean, you're at 290, you see that pop up, you hit a high here. I have a stop on, or I have a trailing stop on, something where I can secure profits. Maybe you get stopped out in here a little bit. You can always keep some runners on and then here, and I mean, I'm not letting these go break even again. So let's move on here. So again, those IWMs, 291, 364, 25.09%. So Google calls these ones were posted on X. And I do want to actually pop back here to the 9th because this was a interesting one. So this one, now typically I'm always looking for everything to be at the ask. Now I'm seeing all these ask side candles with some bid side and mid side flow here, but I'm seeing a lot of aggressive hits here throughout the day. So to me, this is what triggers my flag. We actually didn't get in these until that 140 here at the end of the day, just because you see all these, and again, kind of making that educated guess at the time, a majority of this volume should be carrying over. These candles aren't 100% the same size, so I mean, it's not like these last two here where, okay, well, this one got 1,030 contracts, this one's at, again, almost 1,030. Like if it was just these two on this chain, you would have to check that open interest that next day. That ask volume is not always going to be opening, and bid side volume is not always closing. Big misconception with that as well too. So just kind of, you got to pay attention to that. You can exit at the ask, you can exit at the bid, you can buy at the bid, you can sell at the ask. I mean, so you have to pay very close attention, especially when you see those double candles like that. But this comes with screen time. You can just see, I mean, they're not very all leveled candles. So, I mean, you can make a very educated guess that these are going to carry over. So, again, looking at these from the 9th, and again, you can see majority of those carrying over. And again, looking at that net call premium, we're spiked. And these hitting a high. Let me go back here to Friday. So that 140, so it's going to show 133 here. We'll go 144 here. 144 gapped up that next day, hit 263. So 10th, 288 was actually the high, so that's 105.71% on those. Seeing a lot of bid side, mid side action here too. And again, seeing a lot of that volume there. Not a big change in that open interest. A lot of people buying these contracts on that pump there. So that whale passing them off. So again, perfect example of why not all ask side flow is going to be buying flow. So let me pop this back to the 10th, and I just kind of want to zoom in here. So again, you see a lot of this ask side flow, and you'll see people say they're adding more to the position. Not necessarily, because here we are. A lot of that volume on the 10th, only 200 getting carried over. This is why watching numbers, kind of monitoring that volume and open interest is huge. So again, good little example there, and that's kind of what I like to do on these flow recaps too. I like to dive into that flow just so you can kind of see, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there. A lot of people that will just post ask side, bid side, and they don't do any deep research into the flow. So again, those Googles 140 to 288, 105.71%. All right, let's go to RKLB puts, and I'm gonna pop this out. So again, here's your flow. 1,700, almost 1,800 contracts. This thing just ran into the end of the week, going from 115 to 374, and we're closing at that high there as well too. Again, multi-leg now, but those running from that 115 to 374, that's 225.22%. So next up, we had some bid side RGTI 12.5 calls. So a little interesting here. So bid side, this would be the opposite of ask side flow, essentially, where you're looking for that IV to increase, that spot to increase. You're doing the opposite here. You're looking for that spot to decrease, that IV to decrease, that spot to go down as that flow comes in. So here's our flow here. Obviously, this is our big whale coming in right here. And I'm not going to say this one is probably not part of it. I mean, you're coming in about 5 minutes later, so can't 100% say. But so we're going off just this big block trade that came in, dropping that IV. You're coming in at the spot. Would look like a sell at selling calls here. And now keep in mind, when you're selling premium, that stock doesn't have to move. That stock can stay flat, and they're essentially just trying to have theta decay the contracts. So, and there's some more, there's deeper dives on kind of what's buying to open, selling to open, all that. It's key to know what those are, but not going to dive into that in this video. That's a whole nother subject. But so they open those at 105. They're trading at about 79 right now, so that whale would be collecting 24% of that premium currently, even though that stock's just kind of chopping around that same price, it looks like. But again, selling that premium, they're trying to collect that premium. They want theta to be their friend. So again, that's opposite of seeing that stock move up. So that's kind of why I always say, if people are selling calls, I look at it as neutral to bearish. If people are selling puts, it's neutral to bullish, because that stock can stay flat and they can collect their premium. So keep that in mind. All right, and then Intel, we will touch on this one at the end. This was our flow and charts, one pretty long-term play here. So this one hasn't really made a big move or anything yet. So Netflix coming in here, and I want to actually pop this back to the 10th because we did not get in on that first one. So again, this was that first whale entry. Then I noticed later in the afternoon we had another whale entry again. Not size isn't fully there, and can kind of, again, this comes as screen time, reading, all that here. So we got in here, $26 a contract was the call out. Whoops, go back to Netflix. Sorry, somebody's roaming around by my feet right now. So entry there, 26. These hitting a high of 44 here on the 11th at 69.23%. Again, chopping up there, I mean, should be good enough to secure some profits in there. I mean, it's a nice move there, kind of stayed up there. I mean, you're at the high for almost 2 days there. So again, 26 to 44 on those at 69.23%. Humana, the 620 calls. Oops, let's go back here. And I want to do the 1 day view on this one. So back to the 11th. Again, flow coming in here, these moving up same day. I mean, chopping at that 185, 205-ish there for a high, so 64%. Plenty of time to secure some profits, get some gains there. And just kind of looking at that full week. And I really like this new little calendar thing that they added. Didn't notice that. And this is why I always tell people you need to adjust up stops, because again, you're sitting here at 123, you have all that time to secure some profits. They're trading at 66 right now. So keep that in mind. All right, up next we have the Oklo 71870 calls. Another absolute ripper on these ones. I want to pop that day down a little bit. So your entry here, 5, looks like that whale took some profits off at 755 here. Again, can see a lot of that volume not carrying over. So we know some of that volume came off that same day. But again, absolute ripper here. 5, looks like we hit a high of 11 here on the 12th. So that's 129.17% on those. All right, so next the 711 RGTI 13.5 calls. Again, 120 here. Looks like these hit a high of 172 here on 612. So let's just kind of watch that. So, I mean, we had a small little pop from 120 up to 140 there. A little pullback, and then opened up there, 149 near that high. Then we came back up. So enough time to secure some profits there. Those ran from that 120 to that max of 172, 43.33%. Delta Airlines, good move on this one too. 6,600 contracts, 141, almost $1 million in premium. Again, moved up that same day. This, I believe, the 12th was the day the plane in India crashed, so that kind of helped there a little bit. Sadly, I don't want to say helped the option. So again, that moving up and hitting its high here on Friday of 310. Looks like we're closing near that high-ish, or 253-ish, so those are up pretty nicely. Up max return, so 140 to 310, 121.43%. So this Starbucks one, this was another one that I posted out in the open. Again, looking at that flow. Let's come down here. So again, looking at that spot, that flow, you're coming in at the bid. It's a repeated hits descending fill. You can see that IV decreasing, IV continuing to decrease, that spot price in decreasing. So very good sign there of a selling of the contract. So this is when and these were pretty close to the money. I'm not a super big fan of selling premium that close to the money because these did finish in the money, but contracts did hit a low of 58 here on or 50 on Friday, so you would have had enough. You could have collected about 24% of that premium there. Again, selling contracts is a little different, so I don't want to dive super deep into that. And I mean, you're sitting multi-leg now here, so it's kind of hard to fully tell what's going on, but could have rolled those out a little bit. But again, selling premium's a little different. If you sell premium, you can probably understand this a little bit better. If not, no worries. But again, at the low yesterday, you could have probably collected about 24% of that premium. Alright, so the 613 MDB calls. Again, now some of this flow, this came in right at open. Now, this is why, again, it's always important to watch volume. Because you look here, here is the 12th. Look at all that volume on the day, barely anything carrying over. So this was our entry here. We had 173 called out for an entry. These popped all the way up here quickly. It looks like that whale got out at 192, but they hit a high of 238, so that spread was a little wider there too, so it did give a max return of 37.57%. So again, that's why I'm always saying you have to kind of adjust those stops up, because these came down. Again, that whale was a quick in and out, got out at the ask. Need to be cautious about that, because somebody else would have been like, oh, they're adding here. No, they didn't add. That volume fell off, or all that volume barely turned into open interest. So not another ad there. SPY calls, these made a little intraday move here. Oops, let's see. So we're going back to the 12th. Okay, let's do it this way. So the 12th. So this whale got out same day, 363. Looks like that whale got out at 360 because, again, take a peek here. Or wait, I lied here. So most of this volume did carry over. So this one could have been an ad at the bid a little bit. A lot of volume on Friday, though. But, again, these moving from that original 363 entry. Hit 419 here on the 12th. So it looks like we closed up about 419. So about 15%. And heading into Friday here, I just want to pop this up. Oops, I don't want to go 7 days, sorry. Okay. So these came in the 12th, so entry there. So, I mean, a lot of time to kind of get out of those. And even, so let's see, I just want to see 363. I mean, kind of down here a little bit, and it's starting to get a little messy here too as well. So could be taking full position off here. Would have to check that open interest on Monday, but there's a lot of volume here. A lot of volume on that candle. But those did make that intraday move of 363 to 419, so 15.43% on those. So MDT puts, these ones closed on Friday at 245. Those ones are up 8% right now. Won't spend too much time on that. Boston Scientific, this was a good one. I posted these on X as well. Here was your volume coming in here. You can just see we spiked up. Looks like most of that's still there. Hit a high of 310 from that 197, so 57.36%. So a lot of this Friday flow has not made a move yet, so I'm not going to take a long time on this at all. So SPY puts. This was our original entry, 5. Small little dip. Came back up, hit that 544. Actually, we hit 550 for a high, so up about 8%, closing at about 5 there. So break even on those if you swung those, but up about 8% or so. HAL 627, 21.5 calls again, pretty flat on these. 23 trading at 19. Whales down about 17% on those. ASTS, the 7350 calls. Again, here's your entry, 94. Contracts trading at 74. That whale's down about 21%. Obviously, some time on those still. MicroStrategies, these actually pumped into close. Our entry was here at 402. I have 4 marked down here. Ran and hit 560 for a high towards close. So little 40% move there into close. Finishing up near that high of the day as well. SPY, this will be an interesting one because we have the 616, 607 call. 22 trading at 16 right now. These expire Monday. Pretty interesting there. Kind of getting multi-leggy there. But that whale would be down 27%. And then I have one more I got to refresh here. Let's see. I have Tesla, the 627, 367, 5 calls. These came in here at 461 for us. This was on our live. So tick in here. I mean, small tick. I mean, they're trading at 447, down 3%, obviously some time. And then I do just want to touch on the Intel call from our flow and charts. This is more for Stock Hub here, so I just kind of want to touch on this at the end. So this was our entry. Well, this wasn't our entry. This was the whale that was spotted. We get in that next day. So 165, I have the entry. They're still kind of just chopping. They're trading about 123. I'm still holding a little position here. I mean, there's a long time on these. So, I mean, like I was saying in our write-up, this was a longer setup here. But that is all I have. For those that are interested in trying unusual whales, I do have a discount code that I will drop in the description below. A lot of this is just kind of comes down to filtering, learning how to read the flow, just a lot of screen time. And if you're interested in joining Stock Hub, it's $19 a month. You get a lot of this data. You get these recaps, a lot more market data as well. That's also in the description below. But that is all I have for this week. Have a great weekend, everyone.